And then, so yeah, Ryan, go ahead and explain the overview of what you're going to go over, and then dive in.
All right. So this is regarding the NARF program. Here's a couple of resources. Seller Central. This is basically their what's going on. Like this is their guidance, I guess, section of the NARF program. As a note, people get really confused about what is the NARF program. Is it the NARF? Is it the remote fulfillment? And if you look up NARF on Amazon, on even Google, you don't get a whole lot of resources, but you do if you put in remote fulfillment with FBA. This is where you'll get a lot more information, and the most up-to-date information, of course, is here on in this guidance. There are different fees and things to always keep aware of, but something to make a note of, and I copied and pasted it in here for quick reference, is that there is no difference between the remote fulfillment and the NARF program. They're actually the same.
Just different names.
Different names. So there's
they're
no
calling
difference.
it remote fulfillment now.
Yep. The North American remote fulfillment, which is what NARF stands for, right? It's the same term used to sometimes describe the remote fulfillment with FBA in the North American region, whereas remote fulfillment with FBA also can actually describe the program on a very global level. So you can, when you refer to remote fulfillment, just in its blanket term, it actually means into multiple different sales channels across the world. Yeah. But if NARF is usually specifically for like Canada, US, and Mexico, right?
Yep.
That's the reason why it gets fairly confusing, is that people are using both terms and it's kind of the same one, but NARF is specifically to the North America region. As of July 2002, all eligible products are automatically or can automatically be enrolled in remote fulfillment by Amazon in the remote fulfillment process. We may need to look into this to see if other clients are enrolled as well, just kind of as a heads up. The way that that works, though, is that you still, even though a product can technically be enrolled in North American fulfillment or the NARF program or the remote fulfillment, you still have to go into that sales channel, so into like Canada, and actually create the listing. Okay. So the way that that's actually done is you actually use the build international listing. So this is kind of how that works. So ASINs and SKUs must match in the target store, so Mexico and Canada, before enrollment begins. If there is not a matching product in the store, then we need to use the build international listings, which is a part on Amazon in Seller Central, to automatically create the ASIN or manually create the ASIN. So you can do both. So pretty much you go in there in the build international listing and you fill it out, and usually it'll auto populate with the ASIN and the matching SKU. Now, an important note is that the ASIN and SKU have to match exactly if you want it to do the remote fulfillment. Otherwise, it'll create, if it ever creates a different ASIN or a different SKU, you have to go through the whole process with Seller Central, and it's an absolute headache. It's very, very difficult to do. On this note, this is where people get really confused as far as a lot of the process, is that there are certain ASINs that are actually ineligible for the program because of country-specific regulations, import restrictions, transportation risks, or a combination of these factors. If eligibility changes for this ASIN or for the different ASINs, they will automatically be added to eligibility for the remote fulfillment. Okay, you can't necessarily go in and manually update that. It will actually automatically change in that process. Now, one of the things that we're in discussion with right now, and it's kind of a note down here, is that there are some categories that basically need ungating in the specific store. So what that means is, as an example, we have a client who sells topicals. Now, topicals right now are immediately considered not eligible for the NARF program or the remote fulfillment program. And the reason for that, I mean, there's multiple reasons. One of the stipulations right now is actually that, well, one of them legally is that Canada actually has different restrictions on topical products. And so you actually have to apply for that through their their equivalent of like the FDA. And then you have to get that ungated on Seller Central in Canada. When that happens, usually it will become potentially ungated. Now, what is unknown at this time, because this is all fairly new, is when you get ungated in Canada, will that immediately allow you to then become processed and eligible in Canada? And I haven't found any research as of that yet, but it may be something that we want to do. So as far as test out, And the same thing goes for Mexico, right? And so this is kind of what I'm saying. It's unknown if basically we get ungated for Canada on Mexico, will it unlock that restriction and allow us to automatically enroll? As another note here, sometimes the product is simply ineligible because of shipping over the border of the country causes a temperature change significant enough to harm the viability of certain products. And Amazon does not want to be responsible or held liable for those financial obligations. So they block some categories. This is a secondary reason for the restrictions on topicals. When you transition over to different weather, like standard weather temperatures, Amazon, it can drastically change and actually harm certain products. Okay, Amazon has actually made it for certain topicals. I actually knew this before NARF, before actually doing this research, but that there are certain products that when it, like you have to actually send it directly to certain warehouses sometimes, depending on if the product, if you ever mark that like temperatures harm your product, which is, if you ever do that, Amazon will actually say, okay, we're not going to transfer it between warehouses. It's your responsibility to actually send it to our warehouse, and then they keep it there. So Amazon will actually have other restrictions based on that because they don't want to be held liable for the melting of products and handling all that. It's basically Amazon giving us free money. We send in a product that melts, and Amazon is technically responsible for the shipping. And so if you can actually sue Amazon for that, right? So Amazon has certain things in there they don't want to do, and this could be a secondary reason why topicals are not included in that, as a side note. Now going over the different ASINs and what are ineligible for the program, etc. This is kind of the basic. We already kind of went over this, but included in this ineligibility is import or export restrictions. So import restrictions, right? It's kind of the same thing we talked about. Certain ASINs are ineligible for the program because of the country-specific regulations, etc. And export restriction is basically the same thing. So from being sold in the selected country, blah, blah, blah. These are ineligible criteria that actually pop up. And then the following product types are also not eligible and never will be, right? So restricted products, prohibited products, and dangerous goods. So these are all three of them that no matter what, no matter how much you try, they will never be eligible as of right now for any type of remote fulfillment. Now, the client that we actually were doing this with was a perfect example. They were doing topicals, and they have some topicals, and then some of them are actually normal products that do not require any type of category ungating. And so we actually have different ones. So as soon as you basically download this report for the remote fulfillment ASIN report, which Joe did, she did a great job. It basically comes up with the merchant SKU, the merchant ASIN, and the product name, and we block those out. Now, then it comes with the offer status, and it just tells you as far as the automatic enrollment. Is it eligible or is it not eligible? And if it's not eligible, it'll give you the reason why. If it is, then you can enable here. If it is eligible, you can say, I want to enable. Yes, right? So you click on, oh, looks like it removed it, but you can actually type in here yes, type in here no, for if you want it to actually be enrolled into, or because if it's eligible, then you have to enroll it, right? So you have to actually manually still come and enroll it, and then you update it. But it has these exact same reasons. These are the reasons why it's not enrolled, etc. Now we do have some, like I said, that actually were eligible. So this one is action required. It's actually enabled here. So these ones were approved to actually sell in Mexico and Canada, or sorry, in Mexico, but not in Canada. So offer must match the existing SKU. So this goes back to an issue that we actually talked about before. It has to be a matching ASIN and the matching SKU exactly, which means that we have to actually go into Canada and actually in the Canada marketplace and create that ASIN and SKU manually, and then basically update this, and it'll automatically update, or get Seller Central involved to say, hey, this is the matching SKU, etc. Okay. But this product right here is actually not a topical. It's just a normal product that doesn't need ungating. And so that's why it became immediately eligible and enrolled in Mexico the very first time this was submitted by Joe. This one, kind of the same thing. Its offer is undetermined, and it explains pretty much the same exact reason. We have to create the ASIN manually in Canada, and then make sure the SKU matches, and then we can resubmit it, and it should be fine and good to go. Not eligible, same reasons here. Then there was one other that it was instantly enabled and instantly worked. There was the SKU and the ASIN match, and it's immediately for both fulfillment in Mexico and Canada, right? So this document, I actually like this document because it caused all the questions to actually happen for us and helped us figure out what it is that's going on. Now, a a couple things to be aware of for our clients. If we are enrolling any client in remote fulfillment, pretty consistently in most of the discussion boards and everything is the fact that Amazon's, the fees change for remote fulfillment. So there is a standard Amazon fee of 15% plus FBA fees, right? So that 15% referral fee, I believe, is still the same, but the FBA fees actually change drastically.
Get like a couple bucks more, right?
Couple bucks more. So what that means is that when we actually go to the Canada listings, if they are able for remote fulfillment, we actually have to pay attention to basically the price change, that it's not being, when it gets enrolled, it automatically will usually it will reflect what the price is in the US. Okay. And there's it'll even translate to the dollar change. Okay. But what it doesn't change is how much the fees change. So we have to go and actually check on that and say, okay, the fees have actually increased by $3 US. And so we actually have to increase the price in Canada by what would be the equivalent of $3 US, right? So that is the one thing that that if we are enrolling these for our clients, we have to actually make sure that that actually changes.
Yeah, best practice, you raise the price by a little bit.
Correct.
To reflect that the fee is going to be.
Correct. I would also suggest the best practice is to actually go and find out what competitors' pricings are for US, for the Canada or Mexico markets, and just see, because it could be that I've actually seen this before with a different client. When they actually moved to Canada, they were charging almost twice as much as in the US. And everybody was. The sales were drastically lower, like it didn't have a ton of search volume in Canada, but for the sales that were being made, they were easily making twice as much. So that is one thing to consider, is that if the competitors are also charging higher because that's what they're doing, we should probably reflect the same. So that's kind of it as far as what I have for the remote fulfillment. Any questions that you guys have before I stop this recording?
No, I'm good. That was a good overview. Now we know.
Now we know.
Always Seller Central shenanigans. Okay,
All
cool.
Seller Central shenanigans.
Yeah. Go ahead and yeah, if anyone's watching this on YouTube, then reach out if you have any questions.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's it, Ryan.